Shalom. I want to do a video of the rabbi's interpretation and review of the movie Noah. I'm sure a lot of you are going to see it. It's getting a lot of criticism because people are saying it's not faithful to the Bible. So I want to actually go through the biblical story and tell you what elements in the movie were added or are changed, and then to kind of give you a view from Jewish midrashic perspective, legendary material, of what they added. So the Torah says that Methuselah was the grandfather of Noah, and in the movie, Noah has encounters with Methuselah, but none of that is in the Bible. And then it says that when men began to increase on earth and daughters were born to them, divine beings saw how beautiful the daughters of men were, took wives from among them that pleased them. Very problematic passage. It does say B'nai Elohim, sons of the gods. And so, because there are these transformer-type characters that play a big role in the movie, fallen angels, and that's one of the references to those kind of divine beings. Onkelos, Rashi, and Hirsch strive to avoid any mythological implication of this account, and they understand the divine beings to be the noble descendants of Seth intermarrying with the descendants of Cain. But however, the Bible seems to have some kind of more spiritual element when they say B'nai Elohim. And then it says in chapter 6 that God regretted man's great wickedness, and that's clear in the movie. But Noah found favor with God, which also seems to be clear. Of course, one of the criticisms of the movie is that God is not mentioned by name. They call God the Creator. However, it's not until later in the Torah that, in the 5 books of Moses, that God actually reveals His name. And then it says that Noah had walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefet, or Japheth, in the way the English do it. So those are the 3 sons, and remember that in here it says that Ham seemed to be in the middle based on that. And then God tells Noah that there's going to be a flood to blot out all the wickedness. Now, one of the major themes in the movie is that Noah is convinced that he's got to kill the children born to his son and daughter-in-law, and that he's got to kill his whole family because there should be only animals. Well, none of that is in the biblical text. God's pretty clear that wants Noah and his family to survive and replenish the earth. In addition, in the movie, only the oldest son brings a wife on board, a female on board, and she's pregnant and gives birth to twins. None of that's in the Torah. And the Torah says that the other 2 sons had wives too. That plays a significant role in the movie. Also, there's the one king, wicked king, stows away on board and convinces Ham to help plot the murder of Noah. That is completely fictitious, not part of the Torah story at all. Now, God does say in chapter 6, verse 21, take food to store away for you and for them. But in the movie, the way they deal with that issue is they put all the animals to sleep, so there's no issue about them eating or going to the bathroom or anything else. You can imagine how much of that they'd have to shovel. Then it says clearly in chapter 7, Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives went into the ark. Again, that's not the way the movie depicts it. Only one of the boys has a woman, and that's a tense issue. And then and again, it repeats that in chapter 7, verse 8. Now, the Torah does have an interesting issue about saying that there should be 2 of every kind, and then there should be 7 pairs of the clean animals. But that's not an issue at all. You have no idea. It looks like just 1 pair of each animal from the brief shots of them going into the ark, but it doesn't give you any more details than that. And then it goes into great details about building the ark in the Torah, and then on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat. It doesn't identify the mountain, of course, but the ark does come, and it does depict a raven going out and doves coming back with doves with olive, so that's definitely part of the story. And then God says, never again will I doom the earth because of man, but that is not part of the movie either. And then God blessed Noah and his sons and says, be fertile and increase. Well, in the movie, that's what Noah says to the family after he decides not to kill his twin granddaughters born to his oldest son's wife. And then it continues, I establish my covenant with you. The rainbow, that's a significant part of the biblical story, plays no part in the movie. And then sort of at the end, when they do eventually get to dry land, it says Noah planted a vineyard, he drank of the wine, became drunk, uncovered himself in the tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told his brothers. They covered him up. That is part of the movie. Noah woke from his wine and learned what his youngest son had done. Well, at that point, Ham leaves and goes off by himself, saying he can't live there. Notice that here it says that he's the Beno HaKatan, the youngest son. Now, he's always mentioned in the middle whenever they mention the sons, but here it says he's the youngest. And the Midrash, the sages, the Jewish sages, described Ham as Noah's smallest, not because he was the youngest or the shortest, because he was the smallest in moral stature, is the way they explain that. And then he gets cursed. So we have all of that as part of the story. So anyway, those are some of the main issues. Again, the Transformers that play a huge role in the movie are completely fictitious. You have that one story about the sons of the gods having relations with the daughters of man. That's one issue. Then you have the Nephilim that are mentioned in the biblical text that probably are what the Transformers are supposed to represent. But we don't know much more than that from the text. In Genesis, if you want to check your Bibles, go to Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. It says, "Hanephilim hayu ba'aretz bayamim hahem." The Nephilim appeared on the earth when the divine beings cohabited with the daughters of men who bore them offspring. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. So maybe these Nephilim were the descendants of the divine beings who cohabited with the daughters of men. And the note in my biblical text says, the etymology of the words unknown generated other Nephilim in the course of their married lives. Some suggest the term means fallen ones, a reference to the later myth of the fallen angels, which is the way the Bible describes it. So it's true that there are significant elements of the movie that are not strictly part of the Bible. Most of the movie, in fact, the story of the tension in the ark between Noah and his sons, Noah wanting to kill his family, the daughter-in-law giving birth to the twin girls, the Nephilim fighting off the people that wanted to kill Noah. That's part of the midrashic element of the violence of the men, but kind of mixing up the stories a little bit you have a little bit of the kind of the tension of what Lavan experienced, what Lot experienced in when he was Sodom and Gomorrah, and the story of the spies in the Joshua Rachab story in the book of Joshua, and also the almost murder by Noah of his daughters certainly represents more the story of Abraham and the binding of Isaac than it does anything that happened in the biblical text about the Noah story. So if you want an interesting yarn, it was interesting to watch, enjoyed it. It's not faithful to the biblical story, and I think if people going in know that and actually read the Bible, especially chapter 6, 7, 8, 9 of the book of Genesis, you can compare and contrast the two. Shalom.